weeks ago, we had a lively chat about Pan-Africanism. It was charged. Tatenda can bear witness. Well, Pan-Africanism, well, it demands that the riches of Africa be used for the benefit and upliftment, development, and enjoyment of all African people. Pan-Africanism is a system whereby people share their food, they share their clothes, they share their homes, they share their healthcare, wealth and land, and even happiness. Pan-Africanism is a privilege of the African people to love themselves, and it gives themselves respect, it gives themselves and their way of life respect. Well, Africa has always had the attributes necessary to rise. Africa has always had the potential to be a superpower. But how have we fallen short, and why have we fallen short? We have long spells of instability in parts of Africa. We have high energy and transport costs in Africa, fragmented and non-integrated economies in Africa, and a high dependency of primary commodities in Africa. Is there a future for Pan-Africanism? That's the question I'm going to answer tonight. Is there a future for Pan-Africanism? This evening, Define Your Voice Network has brought together 4 panelists to discuss the future of Pan-Africanism. The goal of Define Your Voice Network is to build a proactive and a problem-solving mindset among the African youth. Tonight's panel discussion is brought to you by Shake Solutions in Malawi and Marifasasa in Uganda. My name is Stanley Mlenga from Blantyre, Malawi, and I'm going to introduce to you tonight's panelists. From Zimbabwe, we have Tatenda Dzvimbo. Tatenda, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Stanley. I'm doing very well. Thank you. How are you doing today?
I am great. Is it evening or afternoon or morning? Apologies.
Afternoon. It's afternoon.
Okay.
It's all right.
Yeah, Tatenda is joining from the United States of America. Is it Oklahoma?
Yes,
okay,
it's Oklahoma.
Thank you very much. From Mozambique, we have Godfrey Mtindi. Godfrey, good evening.
Em português dizemos que boa noite.
Wow.
Good evening, comrades.
Good evening. For once, I was afraid there. I did not know what to reply.
It's okay. We will learn as we go.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. From Malawi, we've got Zirare Phiri. Zirare, good evening. Hi, how are you?
In fact, it's Zirare, not Zirare.
Zirare.
It's Zirare.
Zirare, hi, how are you this evening?
Yes, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. How's Ghana? We have Neka Boute. Neka, good evening. Hi, how are you?
Hello. I'm good. Glad to be here. How are you too?
I'm great. How's Ghana?
Ghana is well. We are managing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Glad to be here. Thank you very much. Those are our panelists tonight. And we also have an audience in attendance. Good evening to you as well. Thank you for joining. And if you'd like to take part in future panel discussions, please feel free to contact Bongani Ntetwa, or she also goes by the name of Consolata Ntetwa. She's the brains behind this discussion. So without wasting much of your time, let's talk about Pan-Africanism and the future of Pan-Africanism. Let's start with education. Neka.
Yes. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so my question tonight is, what strides has Pan-Africanism had on education? What are the strides?
Can you come and give your question one more time?
What are the strides that Pan-Africanism has had on education in Africa? What are your thoughts and what are your views?
Well, thank you again for the question. I think there has been many efforts to try and put Pan-Africanism in our curriculum, whether I think usually, for my personal experience, I happened to have school in Benin. I did my senior high school, my primary in Benin before moving to Ghana for my tertiary education. So from the experience that I've had personally, it was in high school that I encountered Pan-Africanism, and it was more about the idea of uniting the continent and bringing it to life. So that's basically things that we've heard. And we've heard of heroes like Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, the work that they've done and how they managed to bring some ethnic liberation and development into their respective countries. So basically, that's what it has been with the education. But we have not only seen a need depth of Pan-Africanism in our society, in our education. Like you barely wake up or you barely live to hear someone say, okay, when I grow up, I mean, you can say when I grow up, I want to be a doctor, but it's hard to hear that when I grow up, I want to be a Pan-Africanist. Like that's, yeah, started about being a doctor, by being a pilot or a nurse, but like, why don't we say, okay, when I grow up, I want to be a Pan-Africanist? I'm no different. Back in high school, I mean, that was not only something that I started, but as I started growing up and understanding a little bit about how the world is going and which continent I'm born and I'm born in and how exactly my life is going to be shaped by this continent, I got interested in it. So we have been educated, everybody has sort of Pan-Africanism one way or the other, I believe so, but how much does it come into our life? How much does it come into our way of seeing the world and our desire in the future? That I've not really seen that in depth into it. So that's what I can say so far about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Neka. Thank you very much. Okay, so I want to venture into something else. I want to venture into economics. Yes, economics. With regards to the economy, Tatenda, how has Pan-Africanism
Cindy,
helped? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the platform. How has it helped? To be honest, I think Pan-Africanism has awakened many Africans to see that we need to be cooperating on a continental base and not be solely dependent on the West or other countries for our own success. So we have seen the development of African Union and its Vision 2063. We have seen the development and growth of the SADC. We have seen the growth and development of ECOWAS. You know, all these regional organizations that have been solely focused on facilitating the growth and development of, you know, different African countries depending on the region that they are in. So in this collaborative effort in trying to bring both economic and social sustainability and growth in these particular regions, I think Pan-Africanism has definitely been a big factor in influencing our efforts to try to bring different countries together to bring about economic growth. And in that regard, of course, I think somebody is going to touch base on this, that it has opened up borders for trade, it has opened up cooperation, you know, if it's military support or if it's just assisting each other on a national level, whatever it is that a country needs. I think in that regard, I can see some kind of unification happening by different African countries to bring that economic growth in the context of Pan-Africanism.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. That was Tatenda and her contribution towards Pan-Africanism and the economy. And she pointed about something with regards to international trade. Godfrey, do you have anything to add on this? It's a closely related element.
Yes, exactly. Thanks very much. Yeah, if we go back to the birth of the OAU in 1963, our ancestors of Pan-Africanism, Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Kambarage Nyerere, NASA, these great men of vision, all admitted, especially Kwame Nkrumah was a leader. He said, no, our independence as Ghana is not sufficient without the independence of the countries which were suffering from apartheid, that is Rhodesia, Namibia, and South Africa. And we find all these countries which were independent, Ethiopia, Egypt, Algeria, Tanzania Liberation Committee of the OAU. So they also underlined that no, the extraction-oriented economy that we had inherited from the colonialists, where they used Africa to get raw materials. They manufactured goods elsewhere in Europe, in America, in Asia, and then they brought manufactured goods. It was not workable because Africa was supposed to have a value chain of these goods to be produced in Africa, to bring technology and to produce the real goods that were going to bring real foreign currency to Africa. Unfortunately, we haven't achieved much, but yes, as you are saying, comrade, there have been some steps to move in the correct direction. Unfortunately, we have to bring also, you cannot talk economics without talking politics. That's why Kwame Nkrumah said, all right, while least we want to reach this economic objective, seek ye political independence and the rest shall come later. We have to be a free people politically. So the first role was to achieve independence. But unfortunately, some people somewhere created civil war in Africa. Unfortunately, Kwame Nkrumah himself was the first victim, and then it spread like a disease all over Western Africa. Unfortunately, even up to now, we have got civil wars in some of the African countries. Instead of us moving together, the AU, the OAU moved into an economic bloc, a sort of society, an economic cooperation organization, the AU in 2002. We were supposed to move faster in terms of opening borders to have more trade between African countries, because African countries, when you check right now, those who were colonized by France do more business with Paris. Those who were colonized by Britain with London. Those who were colonized by Portugal with Lagos, with Lisbon as well. So we're supposed to open borders. We are supposed to look at the issue of more trade between the African countries. Yes, I can give a statistic that of the trade which we have in Africa, about 15% is inter-Africa. There are issues, comrade. Transport and communication has to be, our transport and communication lines are almost reflect this extractive nature. We all have transport and communication lines which go to the port. But between Zimbabwe and Malawi, between Zimbabwe and DRC, between Zambia and Ghana, Zambia and Rwanda, we have got a shortage of that transport and communication lines that facilitates this communication. But however, there are points that we should be able to identify. If you look at the South African Airways, the expansion of the South African Airways after Mandela got into power, especially during the presidency of Thabo Mbeki, they connected almost the whole of Africa. Ethiopian Airways also complements, and the Kenyan Airways. Because in the past, in the 90s, for you to go to West Africa, we needed people from Southern Africa, we needed to go to Europe first. It was very, very expensive. But now we can go to any African country from Joburg or from Addis Ababa. This has got a spin-off effects, trade, tourism, and all these things there. I will come back later. I will underline the issue of transport and communication, which also facilitates business and which facilitates trade between the African countries. Thanks.
Thank you very much, comrade. So my question has to go to Zirare. What Godfrey has said is, does this all go down to political will? Has Pan-Africanism shaped politics in any way?
Thank you very much for the question. Yes, everything centers to politics. We talk about political will and the likes. So to understand the political side of Pan-Africanism, we need to understand where it was constructed. Long time ago, it was constructed on the need to free Africa from what? From the chains of imperialism, and also to enable African countries to have that notion of what? Equal footing with others. All right. So the understandings, how did the Pan-Africanism came into being? So it was a philosophical movement with political aspects in it. It's something that was led in the diaspora by those intellectuals. We have Henry Sylvester Williams, we have Webb Du Bois, we have Marcus Garvey, just to name a few. So these are the diasporans that started this Pan-Africanism on a political aspect. And when it came back to Africa, the movement was spearheaded by Hastings Band of Malawi, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Obafemi Awolowo of Nigeria, as well as Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya. All right. So you see that this movement was developed by the politicians. They had the political will. So to experience that notion of unity among Africans, we had to ensure that the political will of these heads of states are in sync in such a way that they are speaking one language. So this movement was developed, and in 1963, it led to the establishment of what? Organization of African Unity, with the core objective of putting an end to colonialism, apartheid, as well as uniting the whole continent. So how can you unite the whole continent without the aspect of politics in it? So political will plays a central role in the issue when it comes to uniting the whole continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Zirare. I've noticed how all the panelists are talking about the African Union. Should we say that the African Union is not doing its job? We've talked about economics, we've talked about education, we've talked about trade, and we've talked about politics. One might be tempted to say that the African Union is not doing its job. Is it, should I say, a useless organization, or are they doing their work effectively? Panelists, what do you think?
I will pick on that a little bit, Stanley, and that is a very interesting topic because of how broad it is. And I believe we all have different sentiments that we share towards the AU. Firstly, it is good to acknowledge the good that having such an organization in place is, right? It unifies people. It brings us as Africans, our leaders, together to fight for a common good, which is to empower the African, to make sure that they have the economic independence that they need, their social welfare is being taken care of, and of course that the political sovereignty of our countries remains as is. But unfortunately, I think the African Union, it has potential to do better because we are looking at the African Union competing with organizations such as the EU, right? And we look at how far the European Union has come and we compare that with the African Union. European Union right now is strong because of, I guess, the economic structures that it has put in place for European countries to benefit from that. Putting other factors aside, of course, like colonialism and how I think one of our panelists talked about the extractive nature of this, how these colonialists, they benefited from extracting raw materials from Africa. Yes, putting that factor aside, how else has African Union contributed to having the African countries back up on their feet in order to tackle the issues, I guess, the after post-colonial issues that arise after we got our independence? So you find that such an organization with so much potential, instead of it asserting, I guess, the structural needs that African countries actually need to have in place, it has taken a back seat and has depended majority of the time on the West, either for foreign aid or either for it to have certain policies detected by the West. And it has turned a blind eye to the specific and unique needs of African countries. So this comes from politics where we have civil wars. It's very rare for us to hear that African Union has intervened when we have issues of police brutality or when we have uprisings or when we have, the youth protesting. I know for a fact in Zimbabwe in 2018, 2019, when we had the whole coup, that was not a coup. African Union did not do much in trying to step in or sending any diplomatic services to try to mitigate the issue. So you find find that even in the smallest of matters, it is not doing much in order to apprehend anything that might be a stumbling block for the progression or for the growth of its African member states, and which is very unfortunate because it has potential. This is something I mentioned in the last panel that we had, the need to have the ideals of Pan-Africanism being put aside and being manifested into a reality, which has not been done even by AU. Yes, there's a plan in place. They talk about, Agenda 2063, wanting to see everybody economically independent, eradicating poverty. But now it comes down to the how. How are we going to do that? Realistically speaking, bringing all these states together with their unique problems, how are we going to make sure that we reach this agenda of making sure that each African on the continent is at least living above the poverty line? So in as much as it is a good organization to have, it has been sitting on its potential, and it has the potential to do better and be competing with other regional forces such as the European Union. This is my opinion. So back to you, Cindy.
Thank you very much, Tatenda. Tatenda has talked about how the African Union has got the potential to be great. Zirare, Neka, Godfrey, any sentiments?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yes, as the aspect of African Union centers on, the Pan-Africanism centers on African Union, because the aspiration of the people is that African Union could have done better. All right. So you can see that in the 21st century, that's when you had more an awakening of Pan-Africanism. So the general assumption is that the process of continental integration began with the Extraordinary World Summit, which took place in 1999 in Libya. All right. But now, the fact that remains is that we don't literally need these summits. We don't really need these speeches that are delivered at the African Union. All right. But the fact is that there's need of greater solidarity among the peoples of Africa. How do we ensure this? Okay. How do we ensure this? All right. So the understanding is that the emergency of the African Union should start with the evolution of the Pan-African movement. That's where the African Union is missed. Okay, because otherwise, what's the point of having an African Union when the whole continent is divided, when the whole continent is fighting? So apparently, that's what we can say. So there's the need to review the objectives of African Union, or perhaps entirely dissolve the entire African Union and start over again with the Pan-African movement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zirare. So in a nutshell, Zirare is saying that the AU has not embraced the ideologies of Pan-Africanism. Neka, Godfrey, what are your sentiments on this?
Yeah, I want to go back to the legacy that we have. I mentioned it in the beginning that you find the remnants of the British, the footprints of the British. When you go to the former British colony like Ghana, like Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Kenya, you hear the people are inclined towards the Anglophone side. If it is not USA, it's London. When with the trade, that country, you can see the trade, you can see the multinationals, you can see even the tastes of the people, you can see the names of the buildings and of the people. That is cultural, the cultural links and the colonial hangover is very big. You go to the Francophone countries, I don't want to offend brother Neka Boute, but you find the Francophone, they are very proud with Paris, that the countries do not have central banks, the money is kept in France. To them, that is not a problem. They behave as if they are citizens of Paris. The Portuguese, the same thing. So we Africans have accepted to be divided by the dominating powers. We also have got some people who are not sure whether they are Africans or they are Arabic. They call themselves white Africa or MENA or whatever, all these types of names. We used to laugh at these ones when we were at school, that no, you find our cousins in that region, they are Africans when there is the cup, the CAF Cup to come and win the CAF Cup. But when we have got issues that need us to come together, yes, in the yesteryear, we worked together to remove the colonialist, but to work together to confront these issues that we have, weak governance that we have, the challenges of wars that we have. But now we can see something is going on. I happen to interact with the EU a lot. In the EU, Africa, they call it the post-Cotonou agreement. Look at this one. It's the EU, but it's not talking with the African Union. They are talking with Africa. And when they come to Africa, they are talking with African countries individually and the sub-regional organizations, SADC, EAU, and ECOWAS. And we said, why don't you discuss and negotiate? Africa should go and negotiate as a bloc. We are so powerful. The GDP of Africa is tremendous. With our 1.4 billion population, we are a voice that should be heard in the world. But what does it do? The Europeans give the EU Commission power to negotiate on their behalf. But for us Africans, we don't trust our African Commission president. We don't trust him. We want to go and negotiate on our own. You find a small country like Lesotho wants to negotiate with America. They want to negotiate with Europe. They want to negotiate with China. We lose that synergy, which we should have if we are going to negotiate as the African Union. That's where we are lacking. We are so distrustful of our leadership. I think we all witnessed the embarrassment which happened in South Africa at the Pan-African Parliament. That we were running, which is slapping each other. Some people were taking ballot boxes and running away with them. We could not agree on how we have to choose our own Speaker of the Parliament. Now, if we cannot agree on such a simple procedural issue, what about negotiating billions of dollars? We have got the African Continental Free Trade Area. That is supposed to be what we need right now. The issue of opening the borders for goods and for people. But if we cannot trust each other, that we want France to come and tell us what to do, we want London to come and tell us what to do, we are missing great opportunities that we're supposed to now start to collect.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Godfrey. There's an issue of trust. Godfrey mentioned an issue of trust, that we do not trust our leaders, and as such, we're missing out on various deals. And I'm seeing there's a hand from Zirare. Zirare, do you want to say something?
Yes. Thank you. I like the energy in Makomborero. It's Godfrey. I would like to agree with him. Okay. I think, yeah, it's high time we have to look into these negotiations we're having with Africa. And in fact, for so long I've been wondering, why do we have Anglophones? Why do you have Francophones, in the eastern part of Africa? Then said, okay, what is this? Those are the things that divide us, because you find that the Francophones, they look up to Paris. Okay, you look at Anglophones, they look up to what? The European side, to the British side and the like. So say, okay, now what defines us as an Africa? Okay, the moment you realize that what defines us Africa, we have to speak in politically, socially, economically, culturally. What defines Africa? Well, the moment we define these things, that's when we can go to awaken the spirit of Pan-Africanism. Okay, so the negotiations, we don't have to negotiate for our own existence. All right, it's either we take it by force, or we lead our own way of life. So we need to establish, okay, we need to establish a system that is for Africans. We need to pursue Africanization. We can start by, okay, I'll come later with solutions to that.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I read 3 comments? The first one is from Bali Gazima Yazidi, who says that we cannot achieve Pan-Africanism when our minds are still colonized. Let us remain colonies as states, but our minds should be decolonized first. AU is headed by leaders whose minds are colonized. The second one is from Robert Bob Okello, and he says, one would argue that Africa's political independence means less without the realization of economic independence. To what extent, therefore, does the future of Pan-Africanism depend on the realization of Africa's economic self-reliance? How realistically achievable is that in a highly globalized world? And the third one is from George Shadrack Amanda. He says, unity is vital to economic, social, and political progress, and Africa's aims to unify and uplift itself cannot be done with its diasporas. Do you guys agree with this proposition or disagree? And if you agree, what kind of things can be done to accelerate this partnership? Let's talk about that. George has said something interesting, where he said that unity is vital to economic, social, and political progress, and Africa's aims to unify and uplift itself. What are your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen? The floor is open. Let's start with Boute.
Okay, thank you. I want to go back to the African Union issue. And if we want to look at things in a more objective way, what are institutions themselves? They are basically people, a set of people that come together to make institutions. And you can complain about this institution being effective. You can talk about them being not working and living to the expectation of the founders, of those that sat together and decided to form this institution. The problem comes when you realize that if the humans themselves that are at the core of this institution have not been transformed and do not understand the importance of their role or the mission at hand, you can spend money, you can organize conferences, you can organize meetings until they themselves have understood and have kept it in their heart and their mind and live by it. This institution will always be useless. Secondly, too, Africans not trusting their leaders goes back to our core values, how we've let ourselves or our core values being destroyed by how they call it, by the Westerners, because they sold us a system, they sold us a way of seeing the world. We as a people we are naturally trustworthy people. We trust each other. When I have a problem as an African, back in the days that there was a council, we come together and solve issues. When I'm fighting with my brother and then there's an issue, we come together and we solve it. But how come from this level of community lifestyle, brotherhood, of community-based mindset, we have decided that, okay, it's only whenever I have a problem, I can only go back to my colonial master. I can only go back to whoever, gave me dependence at some extent. And we've lost this sense of community. We've lost it. So when that sense is lost at the core, you can never imagine a case where there will be an issue and then we can really gather together and decide together to come and solve it. So until the humans themselves that have formed this institution, until we get back to the basics, to the fundamentals of what it means to be an African, what it means to care for your neighbor, what it means to value the community lifestyle that we used to have, what the power of it, because there's power of it. We've lost it. We have been sold so well on a system that is not ours. Like you cannot go out of something that is not yours. Like you've been set up to fail. And that's what we've been set up to do. So we can try and argue, we can contest a lot, but if we don't get serious about finding a clear way, and that starts with education actually. What are we told at home about people from different tribes from us? What are we told about people as a Ghanaian? What are we told about people from Nigeria, from Benin, from Niger, from your neighbors, and even the west side of things. Like, until we have been able to change this type of mentality, it will never actually manifest in a trust in the bigger organization that the AU is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nika. Nika touched on an issue of trust and an issue of going back to our roots, our African roots. Thank you very much, Nika. Tatenda, you had your hand up.
Yes, Stanley, thank you so much for giving the floor to me. Honestly, I want to touch base on what the audience shared in the chat. I have a lot of feelings or thoughts towards that I would want to share, and also hear what others have to say. So touching base from what George said on the factor of unity, right? That I found that to be very thought-provoking, and I wanted to understand what the meaning of unity is, because yes, we can throw that term around, but are we all on the same page of understanding what it takes to be unified? So there's a definition that I found, that I think it's by Merriam-Webster, that says it's a state of those who are in full agreement and in harmony. So full agreement, yes. Are we as Africans in full agreement that we need to do better to empower each other? Yes. But are we in unity in how to do it, right? So you have people on one end, I'll give an example. You have people on one end that may be supporting foreign aid, because to them, that's how we're coming in unity to alleviate poverty. But we also have people on the other hand who are against foreign aid because of the detriment of foreign aid. And they're coming in unison saying this is not the right way to go. So if in that there's conflict of interest in what I see in African Union, and even with our regional economic blocs, that there's a conflict of interest, and there's conflict of how to address these problems that Africa is facing. Bob mentioned how, economic independence is important to the African continent. And then somebody also mentioned how we need to dismantle the legacies of colonialism in our minds. This brings me to the point of neo-colonialism, that yes, we say that we are free on paper. Yes, we have the independence, we're not being ruled. But when we come down to our economic liberation, are we truly free? Are we truly unified in trying to dismantle the legacies of colonialism, the structures of economic slavery that our colonialists left? So in trying to understand that and trying to get to the core, to the root of the problem, I think we're able to unpack why Africa has failed to unify its people, or why Africa has failed to unite as a region and as a continent in order to progress and to move forward. So now, just digressing a little bit and then going back to why as a continent we have not been able to achieve economic stability or economic development. We've been so dependent on foreign aid. We've been so dependent on the West detecting what policies we need to take, what we need to do. Right now, we're moving towards eliminating the use of fossil fuels. So that includes things like coal, that includes things like oil, yet they have established the economies based off that. And now they turn around and say, no, we need to move towards renewable resources. We have not reached the point that we want to reach. And already we're starting to adopt these policies that are in no way supporting our economic independence, in no way supporting our economic growth. But because we do not have the power to fight back, we do not have the power or the platform to be fighting back the Western policies, it brings us back to that issue of, first of all, we're disunified in trying to tackle the issue. And second of all, we're powerless in trying to tackle, the West imposing whatever it is. And lastly, we do not have the economic independence that we as people need. So how do we move forward from that? How do we make sure, yes, education, I think all of us here can say we were educated at home first before we came to the diaspora. We're cognizant of the fact that what we've been taught in our school systems are legacies of colonialism. In Zimbabwe, not knowing what the other education systems around Africa are like, but we have Cambridge, right? People write Cambridge where their exams are set in the United Kingdom, they are marked in the United Kingdom, meaning that the syllabus that they're studying is set by the United Kingdom. So from that, we've been independent since 1980, but still today, 2021, in the 21st century, we're still dependent on a curricula that is crafted by the West. And then we have to learn that. So now you can imagine growing up in such a system that you're taught that the West is superior and what you think is inferior. Right now, calling myself out, I'm studying in the United States, right? So everything that I am being taught has to do with how the United States tackles its problems, how the United States regards its people, or how the United States regards the world. And this is what we are bringing back home. So as a continent, besides education, we need an awakening of what both I think Bob and George mentioned in the comment section of unity, but we need to define what that unity looks like. First of all, we need to define how that looks like. Yes, we're agreeing on moving towards economic liberation. Yes, we're agreeing on moving towards economic independence, but how are we doing that? If we can unify our minds and agree on those factors, the practical steps that we need to take in order to move forward, I think we'll see more progress and more change happening, because we definitely need structural changes in our economies. We need structural changes in African Union, and it's up to us to agree on the how part of it and not be, I guess, apart from our way of thinking on how to move forward for Africa to really release the full potential that it has to be a giant in the world and a giant for its people.
Thank you very much, Tatenda. You touched on something that caught my attention. Neo-colonialism. Is Africa truly independent?
In my opinion, if you're asking me, and if anybody wants to answer, please do not hesitate to take the floor. But it's a paper that I actually wrote, I think in my freshman year, the issue of neo-colonialism, and trying to compare that to how colonialism was and slavery even. I think as Africa, as I mentioned, we are free on paper. Yes, we have our national sovereignty, but when it comes to independence, and I think this is the part I agree with Bob, that we're not economically independent. I'll look at some countries in West Africa, their currency is tied to the EU, to some EU currencies, right? So some currencies are tied either to the European Union currency, or they are tied to whatever agreement that they have with Europe. So in that already, that limits what they can and cannot do as a country, because their banking system is being detected by an external factor, a third party in this case. We look at our trade, right? That we're lacking in comparative advantage. We are maximizing on primary goods and not venturing into the things that help us compete on the global market. Why? Because we do not have the resources, and we are taking policies that are detected either by the World Health Organization or by the United Nations. We are focused so much on Western policies that we are adopting those, neglecting the unique needs of our own countries. So in that case, I think we're still definitely under some sort of colonial rule, and this time it's soft power. It's soft power. It's not as explicit as it was, because you look at the trade agreements that we're having even with countries like China, that they tell you that in order for us to build you roads, we have to extract diamonds from your countries. Yes, we have a road, but at what cost? So there's that exploitative nature that is still very predominant in our agreements, in the way we relate with the world, in the way we are relating with foreign investors even, and that has continued to perpetuate the legacies of colonialism and tied us down economically. So in that regard, yes, we're politically independent to some extent, but until we achieve the economic independence that we need in order to stand up to Western policies, in order to stand up against Western influence, I think we'll begin to see more progress in really embracing what independence is, because we cannot claim that we're truly independent when we have our resources being exploited and being used by Western civilization. We cannot say we are truly independent when we have even our own political systems being influenced by Western civilization. So until we find our voice, until we create our own platforms where we're able to fight back, where we're able to create what we think is right for our people, both economically, politically, and socially, then we'll begin to move forward. It takes me back to the conversation last week of democracy. Does democracy really work for Africa? Is this the real or true political system that we need? Has it worked for Africa? Why is it that we continue to adopt systems that have worked for the West but have not worked for us? So what do we do then? It goes back to what I've been saying, structural changes. We need to go back to changing political structures. We need to go back to changing economic structures. We need to go back to changing social structures in order for us to leave what the West has imposed and to start crafting policies, to start crafting systems that work and are unique to our people, to our problems, and to our countries. So until we reach that point that's when I can say Africa is truly independent. In the meantime, we're definitely still working under the legacies of colonialism and under the influence of what we call neocolonialism. I give the floor back to you, Cindy.
Thank you very much, Tatenda. Thank you very much. So do we have any comments or any questions from the audience? Would you like to ask any question? The floor is open. It's open to you. Stanford,
Hey,
you have a question.
oh, okay. Someone else is going.
Okay, George, go ahead.
Thank you. This is just a follow-up for my question, because I would really like to see or know, just to hear the second part of my question. I think the first part, Ms. Tatenda, clearly gave it, one of the best responses. I think it's really good that we define these terms, unity and such. So my question is, what do you guys think? Because I believe most of us are from all part of Africa. What do you guys think is the diaspora role, in making sure that we achieve this full-blown unity we are talking about, this full-blown purpose of Pan-Africanism and the like? Because I think now we have hundreds of our citizens, with one of in medicine, in nursing, in education, in science and engineering, studying elsewhere. I hear, most of them choose not to go back. So they have the skill set already. Yeah, you can say they also have the same Western ideology with them. They will take it back with them some way or some shape or form. So what role do you think diaspora can play, and how do you see that partnership evolving from the home base basically saying, oh, they're coming back to take our money, or they're coming back to tell us they're better than us, and the diasporans feels like, oh, I don't want to go back because it will be more poverty, more hardship, more corruption. I can't deal with the institutions and things like that. So what do you guys see? Because my question, like Tatenda really put it, is like, I just want to just provoke a thought. I just want to just shake the table a bit and see how people are reacting. So, but yeah, what role do you think diaspora can play, and how we can utilize this partnership? Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. Does anyone want to answer that?
Let me give it a try.
Go ahead.
Okay. Before we go back to the diaspora, there are brothers and sisters. We do share somehow a big history together. Skin tone is important, race is important, but we do share a big story together. But one of the main reasons why they themselves know that this place is actually theirs. Like, you can call yourself, Black American or African American or like whatever it is there, but like when you look at yourself, you know where you are coming from. When you look at this big global map, you know exactly where you are coming from. It's not that they are ignorant of that. And when you know your house, you know that one way or the other, you come back there. But before we seek their help, before we seek them coming back in the idea of Pan-Africanism, like how exactly, what would motivate them to come back? Like, I do believe that at some extent, the bigger responsibility is on us that are here first. Are we able to show some seriousness? Are we able to show that we ourselves are willing to make a change? And they too, at that extent, when they see us that we are willing to make a change, we are willing to get serious about improving and dealing with issues like corruption that are everywhere, but then in Africa is so emphasized. Issues like education, bad roads, infrastructure, things that don't make the continent look good. And one of the reasons that can hinder them from coming will be the perception that is in the media. Like, if we make a scale and we look at why exactly Africa is seen so badly around the world, the media will probably be number one or number two, somewhere there. the level of negativity that is being portrayed on Africa is, I know that we all know that things are not perfect here. We have our problems, but we do share our joy. We do share some things. We have some beautiful places. We have some people doing incredible things. We have people like Asio who are thinking a bit differently. But most of the time, our voices or the voice of the people that are trying to make a change not get so emphasized. I mean, if we even balance it and say, okay, we want to show both the good and the bad at the same scale, that will even be quite better. But we see so much emphasis on the bad. And if you are doing, let's go back to basic stuff. Let's say you are in your house with your brother and your mom is always working and she barely comes home. And whenever she comes home, she doesn't see you working. She never sees you working. But then she always sees your brother working, or she always has information about your brother working. Like she does not see you and she doesn't have information about you working. So she will always think that your brother is the only hardworking person in the world. That's what's being seen. We are seeing other civilization being portrayed with, you may not love Chinese, but you respect them. You respect them. You are seeing how their development is being portrayed around the world. They have a big media, they're investing a lot in the media, wherever it is, and they are being seen well. So if we really what the best way to actually get them back would be to tell our own original stories. Like to go out there and not let the media, how they call it, traditional media, do the talking alone. We now have digital tools, like we are here now. This recording, thank God, will be recorded in that, will be uploaded on YouTube, and then it will be up there. And there are people doing incredible things around us. These people need to get more online. We need to tell our stories. We need to tell the world that Africa is not only about evil, it's not only about wars, it's not only about corruption, but there are beautiful people and beautiful human beings doing beautiful things here. So if we can work within this framework, focusing first on what we can do ourselves within our strength right now to improve the situation, and then adding to that the marketing, like that's what it is. You are marketing the good that you are doing. So the world needs to know that Africa is doing good. Africa is doing some good things. We are not perfect, but then we are trying. We are trying at some extent. When they see that, they themselves will say, okay, we are always dealing with racism in this country called America. We are always dealing with a whole lot of things. We never feel home. Despite the many issues that have been, the many things that have been brought up, the number of people that have been killed, the demonstration, whatever, we have never been treated equally. If we know that we have a house, a place where it's doing quite better, that's improving, that wants to do better, I think they will definitely want to come back home. And most of us will agree that there's a big shift in their mindset there, and there's some of them are also willing to come back, and it's going to take time. But in the long run, I think we can win this war, this particular issue, and then have our people coming back here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nika. Nika is talking about portraying the positive things of Africa to the world. Tatenda, you had your hand up, and then after that, we'll go to Stanford. He wanted to say something.
Right. I wanted to try to answer George's question, which is a very, very important question that I think we tried to tackle in the last panel that we had, that what can we as the diaspora do? So as Nika rightfully said, that first it starts with the media, right? And then it also trickles down to investment. He was talking about how we have beautiful places in Africa that need to be showcased and that we need people to come and see. So I think, George, us as a diaspora, both the African Americans, the Black people in the diaspora, and us Africans who are in the diaspora, we have the platform, we have the resources, and we have the opportunities to create a pathway of foreign investment back into our countries. I'll give a good example of my friend Bob, who has started his own company, Marifa Sasa Limited, which is one of the sponsors for this panel right here. He saw an opportunity where he did study abroad, but then he brought back an idea that would channel foreign investment back into his country. So this is one of the biggest issues that we have, that in order for us to create the jobs that we need in our countries, in order for us to create the opportunities that we need, it is entirely up to us, the diasporans, to use the resources that have been afforded to us to create the same opportunities, to mirror that back into our own countries. So I think foreign investment is one of the biggest ways that we as a diaspora can use to channel back and give back into our communities. So that can be through either tourism, that can be through starting companies, that can be through awareness, through media, as Nika said, whatever platform that we are given, or a platform that is afforded to us, we need to be able to channel that back into our countries. And then just on the concept of investment, tourism is one of our biggest assets. We have very beautiful places and very unique things in Africa that we can put out there that people in the diaspora can also have access to. Right now, I think we're seeing a resurgence of tourism where a lot of people are starting to visit Africa, both African Americans or Black people or us as Africans wanting to come back and invest in our countries through tourism. So these are the sectors that we need to promote. And again, I will emphasize and invest, because I think that's one of the main open channels that we as Africans in the diaspora and just the diaspora in general have in trying to give back and build Africa.
Thank you very much, Tatenda. Tatenda talked about investing in Africa. Thank you very much. Stanford, you had something to say? Seems he's away. Godfrey, the floor is yours.
Stanford is here. Stanford is muted.
Oh, Stanford is muted.
I can see he's muted.
Let me. I think he is away. So while we wait for Stanford, you can take the floor, Godfrey.
Thanks so much. Once we start to divide the African family into the diaspora and into those who are at home, we might start to create a problem. Why don't we just deal with the Africans? Because those who are in the diaspora cannot look at Africa and start to say Africa does not have resources, Africa is poor, because we know in Africa we say it takes a community to nurture a child. That this girl, our beautiful Tatenda, is in America. If she would have chance to explain, she might have an uncle who contributed this, an aunt who contributed this, the ticket came from a church brother and things like that. We struggle to send a child into the diaspora. Whilst we don't demand that do things, but we are investing in that child using our little resources. So I think, my brother George, those who have been privileged to have a higher education and to go to the diaspora, a lot is expected of you from Africa. I think we can share the experiences which I have seen. Those who know Kenya, there is a community which has already been initiated by the Kenyans in America, who are quite powerful. They are not investing in order to pay for people to go to the hospital. They've bought a block of land to build skyscrapers, to build value for their country. They are in the diaspora, but the government has availed them land. They are building very big things. And that is a very advanced, high quality residential area, which is going to be used by multinationals, United Nations staff, and things like that. Go to Nigeria. The Nigerians, we cannot overemphasize. Nigerians, big as their population is, they are doing wonderful things. The community in the diaspora are doing wonderful things. Uganda, I have the privilege of having worked in Uganda. The people in the diaspora are building schools, colleges, real estate, hospitals, private hospitals, and things like that. We are talking about our independence, comrades. if we continue kneeling to the people of another race, people of another continent, please do things, do this for us, do this for us. I don't know. Can we sing the same song? Can somebody sponsor you in order for you to be independent of them? Is it possible? Look at our AU. Our African countries cannot pay their subscriptions. So the AU goes with a bowl to beg to the Chinese. You remember the story of the Chinese that they gave them a building and they put in spying equipment there. We beg from the Europeans in order for us to be independent of the Europeans. We beg from the Arabs, we beg everywhere. I think we have to put our food, our hand where our mouth is. Let's start small, but let's support our programs. Be they at family level, be they at our former school level where we did our matric or our A level, be they at our community level. They're building a school, they're building a clinic. Let me also put $100 there. Harambee system worked very well during Nyerere's time in East Africa. I don't know where it is right now. I agree with Tendai. One of the biggest problems that we have right now when we are talking, our convener told us that we are being sponsored by somebody. I hope that that person is a black. We don't want to continue kneeling to these people. Let's stand on our own feet. Let's do some things on our own. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Godfrey. You'd be pleased to know that our sponsors are actually African, yes.
Wonderful.
Yes, Shake Solutions is from Malawi, and Marifa Sasa is from Uganda. And I can actually see Robert here. Robert Bobokelo, thank you very much for sponsoring tonight's program. So,
Thanks.
Jaime said something that caught my attention. It's in the chat. He was talking about, let me see if I can find it. He said that we had our roots until the missionaries came. These were uprooted, and like Tatenda said, we now rely on Western systems to run our education, political and economic systems. And he asked a question. He said, the question is, how do we uproot the Western systems and restart our own? Because Tatenda and Godfrey, you talked about us being colonized, still being colonized by the West. Does anyone have an answer to that question?
Yes, I would like to try to tackle that a little bit. And I'm going to refer back to what my fellow panelist, Neka, said, education. We need to start creating our own curriculums. We need to stop having curriculums that are imposed by the West, because those Western curriculums, I will give an example. I did ZIMSEC, which is curated by the Zimbabwean national education system, right? But I had to study European history from World War I, World War II, up to, the Wilson-Woodrow, whatever, 14 principles. There was nothing much about African history. How Ghana got its independence, how South Africa got its independence. So until we start to curate our own educational curriculums, I think that is a good starting point, because as children, we're growing up in these systems. We're being taught that, the United States is the bigger power. So whatever you do, make sure you understand the system of the United States in order for you to go there. In order for you to succeed, understand how the Europeans got to power, because you need to go to Europe and then have your life there. But we are not being taught where we started off as Africans, what we need to do as Africans, who helped us during our own independence struggles. These are things that I began to learn in college when I was taking African-centered classes. So
until we have curriculums that are curated specifically for our own African history, our own African economies, our own African social statuses and whatnot, that is when we'll begin to see a change. Because everything that we are today, most of the things that we know today have been from our educational foundation. So we start from there and we build towards, I think, achieving what Neka was saying, that mental change, and then liberating our minds from the colonial mindset through the information that we get, because knowledge is power. This is something that we know. This is exactly why the West, or like you know, the legacies of colonialism are still eminent till this day, because they've used knowledge to manipulate, they've used knowledge to coerce, they've used knowledge to their advantage. And until we can repel that and build our own knowledge and make sure that that knowledge is being mainstreamed through our own media, it's being shared through our own lenses, our stories are being shared through our own lenses, through our own voices, I think we'll begin to see some kind of change. And I'm hoping that this is something that a lot of African countries will adopt, changing the curriculums or the systems of education to better suit our own narrative and not continuing with the legacies of educational colonies.
Thank you very much, Tatenda. Jaime, I hope she has answered your question. I see that Stanford is back. Stanford, you had a comment, or was that a question?
Yes, I would like to add to what the previous speaker has said. You know, we cannot approach this foreign education system whilst we look down upon ourselves. Do we really value ourselves as Africa? Because if we look to all people around here, if I would like to say, okay, let's check like the qualification that we have. You will see that the one who graduated in Uganda, University of Uganda, and someone graduated at Harvard, all of us, we may agree that the one who studied at Harvard is the best, has got the best education. And to see, to do masters, you should do like in UK, in France, in America. If you do masters in Nigeria or in Kenya, you are not going to be considered. Yes, somewhere you can be considered, but I think the starting point is that we should value ourselves as Africans and believe that all our systems that we are going to establish, whether economic, education, social, and everything, we will value, and so that we can invest on those systems that we establish. But we look down upon ourselves as Africans. That is the starting point, that everything, whether good, that's why we import even the toothpicks from China or whatever. But in Africa, that is where the timber is, that is where the wood is, and doesn't even need high value investment to produce toothpicks. So the starting point for me is, let's value ourselves as Africans and believe that whatever we establish, it can be education, financial, economic, then we embrace it, knowing that, yes, this is our own thing. Let's value ourselves, then all other things can come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stanford. Stanford has talked about we should value ourselves as Africans, valuing ourselves. Thank you very much, Stanford, for your contribution. In the final 15 minutes, we've got 15 minutes left. I'd like to ask our panelists the final question. Is there a future for Pan-Africanism in Africa? Panelists. Let me start with Tatenda.
Thank you, Stanley. I'm sorry, my Zoom is acting up. Okay, now I can see you. Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes,
I've been experiencing some kind of glitches with my Zoom. Great. All right. So first, I just wanted to address Stanford's comment, and I am in complete agreement with everything that you say, that in order for us to be able to compete, right, out there, we need to first value ourselves and to erase, I guess, the inferiority complex that we have. Now, when you spoke, the question that I asked myself was, how can we as Africans value ourselves? And why is it that we value a degree from Harvard over a degree from the Ugandan university. And it dawned on me that the main reason that we value the educational system of the West is because we think they have mastered how to break ground, either through economic success, political success, social success. So we look at the university that you mentioned, Harvard University, right? It is one of the predominant universities in the world, and it's located way in the United States. United States is known as one of the global giants in the world, meaning they've mastered what they need to do in order to break ground for economic freedom, for economic growth. And now we look at the well-being of their people. They managed to create a social status for their people where they have a high GDP per capita, they have good living standards and high living standards for their people. We look at their educational systems, they have curated that in order for their people to understand where they came from, right? They are not afraid to talk about slavery. They're not afraid to talk about their involvement in the world wars. They are not afraid to talk about where they came from in order to get to where they are. And their people understand, they're patriots of their countries because they understand the mission to make America great again. Now, when we compare that with Africans, we look at what is being taught in these universities, what is being taught in the Zimbabwean university, what is being taught in the Ugandan university. We do not have our own curriculums. We've adopted what America has said sociology is. We've adopted what Europe has said psychology is. We've adopted what the United Kingdom has said economics is, right? We do not understand that these concepts are subjective, right? And they are best fitted for their narrative. But what is our narrative? How best can we address our own issues? So I think until we break ground and understand or curate solutions that are unique to our countries, then will we begin to have that value that we're talking about, because it goes back to everything that we've been talking about today. The economic independence. Are we truly free until we have economic independence? Are we truly free until we have the resources and the platforms that we need? You mentioned how we need, our own manufacturing industries in order to process or procure the simple things such as toothpicks, right? So these are the things that give us value. It's very unfortunate that the market or the world is structured like that until you have that economic power, then you have the value or the voice that you need in order to create the systems and the policies that we need in place. So in essence, now going back to what Stanley is, does Pan-Africanism have a chance? Does it have a future? Yes, it does, but it begins with you, it begins with me, right? Everything that we've talked about today, how far as Africans are we willing to go to ensure that our brother, our sister, generations to come have a life that is better than ours? How far are we willing to go to uproot the systems of oppression, of colonial legacy, to ensure that generations to come in 2063 do not have to be doing the work that we're doing right now? So it's a matter of getting our hands dirty and getting to the root of the problem that we have as Africans and that we have on the continent. So yes, we can have these panels, but if we leave this place without taking out something from this, then these panels or these discussions that we continue to have may be rendered useless. So we need to start changing. Change begins with the self, with the person, right? You are the change that you want to see in your community. So what are you as an individual doing in order to make sure that future generations in 2063 or future generations do not have to deal with the legacies of colonialism, do not have to deal with competing with their brother or sister, do not have to deal with trying to pull down another person in order for them to get to the top of the ladder? So whatever it is that we can do, be it investing back home as Bob is already doing, or us who are in the diaspora trying to get back home and investing, as Makombo rightfully said, that it is up to us. We've been invested in, now it's up to us to give back to our community the best way we can. So we have to awaken and make sure we understand that the change that we want to see in our community will begin with us, with the understanding that we are one, we are capable, and we have what it takes to make Africa what we want to see it as in the next 10 years from now. So with that, I give the platform back to you, Stanley. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tatenda. Thank you very, very much. Tatenda has stated that Pan-Africanism is possible. Yes, it begins with you. And she also stated that one thing that caught my attention is how she stated that how far are we willing to uproot the system of oppression? Tatenda, thank you very much. Neka Boute, is Pan-Africanism possible in Africa? You've got 3 minutes.
Pan-Africanism is definitely possible in Africa. We have what we need. Like it may look unrealistic, but I do believe that most of the things that are needed to create that united Africa that Kwame Nkrumah and the many Pan-Africanists, fathers of Pan-Africanists had in mind, we can make it come into fruition. But there are some key things that we need to make sure that we have. There are some key things that we should live up to. So we must make sure that we stay true to ourselves, as in knowing that Africa has everything that it needs. We basically were not great from the time that they came. We already great far before that. We had kings like Mansa Musa, who were the first one to actually expose the glory of Africa to the world. They were people that actually made Africa look great. When it was moving to Mecca during these 2 years, moving so much gold that the Portuguese who first encountered it saw that, okay, Africa, this place actually has something. So let's get there, let's start getting interested there. So there was already glory. There was the kingdom of Benin back
It's not this ego. When we are independent, or we are supposed to be independent, when we are supposed to be independent, and then our own children go and get armed from somewhere, a country called Mozambique, one of the poorest African countries or the world countries, they discover some natural gas. And suddenly, African children are coming and they are cutting people, villagers, women, children, cutting them into pieces. We discover on that no, the African, myself and you, we should know who we are, and we should also understand that the other parts of the world, which have been exploiting us for hundreds of years, are not happy when you arise. So the situation of us to break the chains is not going to be easy. Just like you can see right now, on whose platform are we using right now to talk about our independence? We are using their platform, and all this conversation is recorded. That's why you find that the Chinese and the Far East economies have developed faster because they started their own technology in their own language. And for you to break into that one, to understand their codes and things like, it's very, very difficult. But for us, everything that is us is written in French, in very good French, and in English. And we go and borrow from them. We go and beg from them so that we are going to develop our own systems. Right now, we have got problems. When there is an election, it's a problem in Africa. All these systems, I'm coming back to what Tendai has said. Maybe we're supposed to have a conversation, a serious conversation after independence. Where do we want to go? Do we want to go to the same oppressor? That's what we did. After independence, we went back to the oppressor. in order for us to develop. Now we are moving to go to China because we have seen that the West has fumbled things with us. We are wallowing in debt, we are wallowing in corruption and all these things. And we are going elsewhere to go and look for a solution. But maybe the solution is with us here.
Thank you very much, Godfrey. Godfrey has stated that Pan-Africanism is possible, yes, and we need a mindset change. And the solution is here in Africa. Zirare, is Pan-Africanism possible? What are your thoughts? You've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. Yes, Pan-Africanism is possible, very much possible. Its possibility dwells on our understanding of what constitutes Pan-Africanism. Talk about the values, the concepts, the aspects. All right. So the idea is we need to find what is common amongst Africa. There are so many things that are common amongst Africans. So many things that are common. Okay. Now we start with those which are common. So it's like we have to unite in our diversity. Okay. By establishing the commonalities which you are having, put them together. All right. So we also need to radicalize Pan-Africanism, the chit chat. We need to radicalize the way Kwame Nkrumah, Mohito Keita and the likes, the way they took Pan-Africanism, they took it in a radical way. We need to embrace that. Okay, I'm glad to say that of recent we have so many people that are adopting the issue of Pan-Africanism, the philosophy itself. So many people are talking about it. There are so many conversations about it. That's something that has to, it's like we need to awaken that giant which is sleeping in us. Okay, we don't need to be racist in advocating for our Pan-Africanism or Pan-Africanism. Okay, but we need to promote the African values. We need to promote the African norms. We need to promote what it means to be an Africa. Okay, I was not born in Africa, but Africa was born in me, or was born out of me. That's the kind of thing we need to have in our mind. Okay, issues of trust, issues of trade, issues of economic growth and life. Look at Zimbabwe. If we had that spirit of Pan-Africanism, we could have bailed Zimbabwe out. Okay, we have these regional blocks that are dividing Africa now and then. We have SADC, ECOWAS, commerce and the likes. What do we need this for? They are the very same thing that are dividing Africa. All right. So it's like, okay, we have SADC, but now Zimbabwe is in SADC, but it's suffering economically and the likes. South Africa is just miles away. So where is the spirit of Pan-Africanism? Where is the spirit of brotherhood? At the moment we realize this, the moment we stop fighting amongst ourselves, the moment we stop competing amongst ourselves, that's when we can tend to promote this spirit of Pan-Africanism. It is possible, and the youth are the engines of this philosophy. We are the engines of this philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zirare. Zirare has stated that the moment we stop fighting amongst ourselves, Pan-Africanism is possible, and we need to embrace it in a radical way. Thank you very much, my brother. I'm seeing a hand by Jaime. Jaime, do you have something to say before we wind up?
Hello, I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I think I asked the question earlier, to which Tatenda responded. And I'd like to say thanks for the response. I think I asked about how do we uproot the Western systems that we have in place. So she responded, I think one of them, she talked about establishing an education system that fits Africans, or that talks to Africans. But still more, my question rather was not the theoretical part of it, but the practical part of it. Like, how do we start these changes we're talking about, or these changes that we are suggesting? Like, who is to be approached, or who does what, or when do we wish to have this happen? Because this is just a discussion. So I hope it's not going to be an end in itself, like, yeah, we end here with the discussion and nothing happens. So that's the question that I was asking in respect of how. Because we have these politicians, we've got people in power running everything, and they're using these same established systems that are in place, and they like it. We know African politicians, they like what the systems are doing for them. Talk about politics and even the economics as well. So it's the people that suffer. So my question was rather how, in respect of practical side of it, who does what? After this discussion, what happens next? That's the question that I was trying to get answered.
All right. Thank you for that question. And I hope what I will answer this time will be able to fulfill the requirements of that question. So the practicality of it, I think personally for me, looking at where I'm standing, you mentioned how, politicians are still in power and they're running the game. That means as youths, we need to be politically active as well. We need to make sure that we are involved in the politics of our countries, be it through voting or be it through constitutional referendums, whatever it takes for us to be involved and to have our voices be heard. Secondly, we can start up things in our own countries, however way that looks like. We all have different gifts, we all have different talents, right, that we can try to maximize and see what we can start. Right now, Define Your Voice, it has given us this platform to be able to discuss such solutions, to be able to bring to light the things that we might not have understood. This is their way of doing it, but you as an individual, what do you have that you can bring and offer to your community? Is it through technological innovation? Is it and through starting a company, whatever that might look like, you are going to inspire a lot of people to show them that you can. If you can do it, they surely can. We're all from different parts of the region, and I can safely say that we have one or two people that look up to us, right? So in them looking up to you, they can take one or two few lessons that they might be able to incorporate in making that change. It goes back to what I said previously, that the change begins with you. I know this is very broad, but this is the most practical thing that I can think of. What can you as an individual contribute to your community right now to be able to dismantle the legacies of colonialism, or to dismantle the systems of oppression? Is it through political participation? Is it through starting a nonprofit organization? Is it maybe mentoring some students and educating them on their worth and what they need to do? Is it teaching even? What is it that you as an individual can do to be able to uproot that? Because this cannot be achieved overnight. It will not be achieved next year. It might not even be achieved in the next 5 years. But if we start from now, one step at a time, one individual at a time, by taking practical steps that we are able to take in our own capacity and in our own talents, I think we'll be able to progress further. So I hope that answers your question to some extent. If not, please, I would definitely love to have a conversation with you. Either we can connect through Messenger, LinkedIn, whatever you'd like, and to discuss this a bit more further.
Thank you very much, Tatenda. We're going to take one final question. 1 minute. We are running out of time. Panelo Ndlovu, do you have a question or a comment?
I think it's actually both a question and a comment. The first comment is, look, this is great. We're all talking or preaching the already, converted. So I think the question would be to you, Chair. I think it's similar to what is being suggested. Some of us have ideas and we would like to collaborate. We have ideas that we need all the brains around the table and the similar minds that are here sitting in strategic location. What forums are available for such minds to create those think tanks that we can now actually create roadmaps for different expertise and fields? We can all collaborate and help each other. I'm sitting in South Africa. We need a lot of help. We're doing stuff. Some are sitting all over this continent. So let's start talking. So are there forums that allow these think tanks for action now as opposed to just discussion?
Well, that's a very good question. Are there forums? Yes, there are. I know that Zirare is actually the incumbent president of a Pan-African network, and I believe he can answer that question. Zirare?
I'm the Secretary General of Pan-African Renaissance. It's headquartered in Namibia. Can you just paraphrase the question from Fanelo? Yeah.
Okay, Fanelo is asking, are there in essence, are there like forums, and are there networking platforms whereby people can discuss about Pan-Africanism? That's what he was asking.
Yes, we do currently we do have a Twitter handle and a WhatsApp group, but most of our discussions take place on Twitter. So the moment where we engage into such a hot topic or debates, we also arrange what you call discussions. Of recent, we had panel discussions, which we divided into several parts: economically, democracy in Africa. We talk of social aspect and cultural aspect of it. So we do have the platforms where we convene and talk about Pan-Africanism. All right, and also we had a summit in 2018. So we are supposed to have another one, but with the COVID-19, we are arranging of having a summit anytime soon possible. So we can. I'll share my line with Fanelo. We can connect and also maybe bring you on board on those platforms to discuss more of Pan-Africanism. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, I believe that's okay. And I believe action will be taken, and immense collaboration will also be taken. So apparently it seems that we are running out of time. I'd like to thank our panelists for the great discussion. I also like to thank our audience for being such a wonderful audience.
Sorry, Comrade Stanley.
Yes, sir.
The comrade with just entered and he has got a question. Can you just give me some seconds?
Okay. Jerry, I believe you have a question. Hello, Jerry. Is he?
It's unfortunate. Maybe you can give people. Is there a communication line like what Comrade Zirare was talking about? So people can continue interacting maybe on WhatsApp or which other forum, so that we keep up the momentum.
Yeah, that's true, Magombera. I agree with you on that. I think that's a brilliant point.
apologies for that. I don't know, I was booted out. So as I was saying, tonight's program was brought to you by Shake Solutions and Mari Fasasa. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Bob for tonight's program. I would like to thank Tatenda, Godfrey, Zirare, and Neka. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope and I believe that we'll have another panel discussion on Pan-Africanism. So my name is Stanley Mlenga from Blantyre, Malawi. I'd like to thank each and every one of you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Hi, thank you very much, Stan.
Thank you.
I also just want to thank the audience for coming. There's been a question that has been asked on how we can continue with the discussion. So as Define Your Voice, we have a Facebook group. I think it would be best if we can go to that group and keep the momentum going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Consolata. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Yazidi. Nice one. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
nice one,
Ngugu.
Stanley.
Welcome.